Hello, everyone. I am Scott Ostrom, Program Director of Engineering Services and Completions for the Spaceship Company, the sister company of Virgin Galactic. Welcome to our third live space chat and second in a series explaining how we design, build, and test our spaceships.
3, 2, 1, release. Fire.
Last week, Mike Moses, VG's president, walked you through some of the biggest challenges we face when designing our spaceships. How many of you can remember some of the facts Mike presented? First, do we launch our spaceship from the air or from the ground? Second, what do we call the system that helps us re-enter the atmosphere safely? And third, what is our spaceship's name? If you think you can answer these questions, please put them into the chat and I will give you the answers at the end. A little bit about me before we get started. I'm a professional engineer and I was the first engineer hired by the Spaceship Company as chief engineer almost 10 years ago. When I'm not at work, I love to compete in Otilla races with my wife, Kathy, and my two kids, Justin and Annika. YouTube Otilla later if you don't know what that is. Explore the nearby Sierra Nevada mountains, or ride one of my off-road or large wheel unicycles. On to today's topic, how to build a spaceship. I'm going to tell you about some of the materials we use to manufacture our vehicles and why we use them. And then I will challenge you to build your own spaceship from the design you came up with last week. We will then have some time for questions at the end, so be sure to add any questions you have to the chat feature at the right. As you heard last week, it is really important that every part of a spaceship is designed to make the finished product as safe and reliable as possible. Our technicians who build the individual parts of the spaceship work closely with the engineers who design them to make sure every part works as designed. Our technicians are talented craftspeople. One of the challenges of building spaceships is weight. The heavier a vehicle is, the more power you need to get out of Earth's atmosphere, which means you need a bigger rocket motor, which adds even more weight. In the end, you'll end up with something that's bigger, heavier, and potentially not as safe as you wanted. Mike Moses did a great job of describing this challenge in last week's Space Chat.
And eventually you can see that the size of our rocket with all the fuel is a whole lot bigger than the size of our spaceship.
So we had to find a material that is light and strong. The first airplane, made by the Wright brothers more than 115 years ago, used very light materials, wood for the frame and silk or cotton for the wing skins. Both of those materials are really light, but definitely not as strong or durable enough for a spaceship. Fun fact, one really important component of our spaceship actually is made of wood. Can you guess what that is? I'm going to give you a really good hint. Here is that part. We will tell you what that part is in next week's Space Chat, so please post your answers in the chat feature. Metal is strong. Most airplanes today are constructed of aluminium for our British friends, a metal which is strong, but also a bit too heavy for our spaceship. Aluminum also becomes a little tricky when it gets hot, but we will get to why that is important later. For our vehicles, we use a material called carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is made out of very thin connected strands of the element carbon. Lots of things contain carbon, plastic, diamonds, even parts of the human body. We use a significant amount of carbon fiber to build the vast majority of the parts that go together to make our spaceship, including parts of the rocket motor. Here is the sample of that material in its uncured or uncooked form. Do you know we use large ovens to essentially bake? We call it cure our parts to give them their final form and strength. We also use a lot of lightweight honeycomb material to separate layers of carbon fiber to make the structure incredibly strong. By the way, What animal creation did engineers borrow honeycomb shape from? That's right, the bee. The final product is called a sandwich panel. The carbon skins are the bread, and the honeycomb is the peanut butter. Let's call that the honey. Finally, we can bond sandwich panels together to create endless shapes and structures. Bonding is essentially the same as gluing, but just using higher grade adhesives than what you might use to build your spaceship at home. So is carbon fiber light enough and strong enough? It most certainly is. To give you a rough idea what a remarkable material we use, a piece of carbon fiber is 50% stronger than the same size piece of aluminum and about 50% lighter. What is another cool thing about carbon fiber? Our spaceship designers and engineers can also customize carbon structures to be stiff in one direction and flexible in other directions. Not sure what this means? Well, take a look at this sample. All of the strands of carbon are running in this lengthwise direction. So it is stiff in that direction. But when I twist the part, it twists quite easily. Now look at this sample. Same size and thickness. In this sample, the strands are running at a 45-degree angle to the lengthwise direction. So this sample is extremely difficult to twist, but very easy to bend in this lengthwise direction. Our engineers are talented at determining the direction of fibers to enable our technicians to build parts that perfectly match the unique needs of each part and eventually make the whole spaceship incredibly strong and amazingly light. I mentioned that aluminum is not a big fan of heat, and here's why. When aluminum gets hot, it holds onto the heat and expands. For those of you who like technical terms, this is called thermal expansion. With some help from an adult, microwave a marshmallow for a few seconds in the microwave. The marshmallow will heat up from the thermal expansion due to the microwaves, but then it'll shrink back down as that heating source is removed. Don't microwave it for too long though. Trust me, you will have a mess. Carbon fiber doesn't expand as much when it gets hot, which is great when we're talking about going to space, where high speed, air friction, and even the rocket motor can make the outside of the spacecraft quite hot. But we protect the carbon. Last week, Mike mentioned that our spaceship has silver coloring to solve another design challenge. Here is a sample of that silver material. The silver not only looks really cool, but it also protects our spaceship and the carbon fiber by reflecting rather than absorbing the heat. Another technical term for you, this is called thermal protection, and is pretty much like a spaceship sunscreen, protecting the surface of the carbon fiber from heat and damage. Okay, so now we've built most of the parts out of really strong and really light carbon fiber. How do you think we put it all together? Well, we divide the spaceship into major sections. We build those sections, and then we put all those sections together to make a whole spaceship, kind of like a big model airplane or model car. One more technical term for you, this is called modular assembly. I have a spaceship Unity model here. My daughter did a nice job of painting this last evening. The model shows the different modules and how we build them and then put them together. You have the fuselage, the skins, the booms, and the nose cone. We then fit all of the internal systems into those major areas, things like brakes and electrical wires for power items such as instruments in the cockpit, which help our pilots fly safely. After that, the spaceship gets a cool paint job, just like our spaceship Unity, and then it goes through testing, which you will learn about next week. Eventually, it starts doing the most important thing of all, and that is taking people like me, and hopefully you, to see our beautiful and precious planet from the black sky of space. Now it's some time for questions from all of you. The first question, why does the Virgin Galactic spaceship resemble an aeroplane instead of a rocket? And that's from Tania Rose in Cornwall, UK. That's a great question. I often think of our spaceship as a rocket with wings with a really cool interior. So the wings are really important for two aspects of our mission. The first one is we re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. We're coming belly first to Earth with that large wing planform dissipating the heat. So that's really important. But the final phase of the flight, when we have to land at the spaceport, requires wings because we're a glider. So that's why it looks more like an airplane than a rocket. The next question from Abby Spencer in Chicago: what part of building the spaceship takes the longest? So one of the fun things about working at the spaceship company is we work right next to the spaceship. So my desk is right next to Unity and our next two spaceships. And so my answer is more just from my observation than hard data, but I think it's true. Building the wing and the booms probably takes the longest, primarily because of all of the details, the spars, the ribs that go into building those parts, and then the amount of detail and precision we use to make sure that we assemble them to the design spec. So I think that's probably what takes the longest. As with anything, you get better with practice, and we're becoming more efficient the more spaceships we build. The next question is, what were your favorite subjects in school? And this is from Jess Pusia from New Jersey. So Jess, I guess kind of like most engineers, I loved the sciences and math. In particular with science, I loved physics. I loved actually biology and chemistry, geology. Math, I think probably my first favorite math class was trigonometry in high school, but I loved statistics when I was in college. And then with respect to science, interestingly, one of my favorite classes was in college. At Princeton, I took a class in ethology, which is the study of animal behavior. All right, let me see what other questions we have. The next question is from Ryan, and he asks if Spaceship 2 can land at normal airports. Well, so we land at spaceports, and spaceports are designated spaceports so that that column of air above the spaceport is protected during our flight. We like to have runways that are about 12,000 feet long. So, you know, if you meet those criteria and you can get the FAA to approve you as a spaceport, you know, we have a potential new spaceport. All right, let's see here. Mike Ruffles from Phoenix, age 6. Hey, Mike, thanks for watching. Asks if modern spaceships are faster than ones from the past. You know, physics really has applied the same to old spaceships as new spaceships. You have to go fast enough to exit the atmosphere. And so, you know, in terms of speeds, we're not seeing much difference in the speed of old spaceships, rockets, to today's spaceships. And then I missed one from another one from Mike Ruffles. Mike, you have a lot of good questions. Oh, I'm sorry. This is from Y'all Riboloff. He asked, how old do you have to be to go to space with Virgin Galactic? That's a great question. We have a very large range of ages of our future astronauts. I believe you have to be 18 years old to qualify due to FAA rules. But then we have future astronauts, I believe they're as old as 90 years old. So I think that's it for the questions in terms of having time for questions. Thank you very much for tuning in. Before we end the space chat though, let's go over the answers from last week. And it looks like you got a lot of them right from the chat. First, do we launch our spaceship from the air or from the ground? We launch from the air. Second, what do you call the system that helps us re-enter the atmosphere safely? The feather. And lastly, what is our spaceship's name? VSS Unity. Last week, Mike challenged you to become an engineer and design your own spaceship. Our challenge for you this week is to become a technician. Take that design and try your hand at building the spaceship with things you have at home or in your yard. You can use paper, sticks, cardboard, even toilet paper rolls. We'd love to see what you come up with, so be sure to post your creations on social media and use hashtag #ScienceWithVirginGalactic. If you need a copy of the spaceship build activity or some other fun activities to do at home, visit the Kids Corner of our website at www.galacticunite.com/Kids Corner. Be sure to tune in next week when we get to the next portion of the process, testing. I'm going to send you off with a look at our technicians in action building the second spaceship in our fleet. Be well, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Behind me is our second spaceship that we are assembling for Virgin Galactic. This will be the second spaceship that will go into service after VSS Unity. As you can see, the vehicle's starting to look like a spaceship. We're very far along in the assembly of this vehicle. We've built more than 90% of the composite structure of this vehicle. We've completed the wing, we've completed the fuselage. The feather has just completed its initial installation on the wing. And so it's an incredibly exciting time for the team, because for the first time, you look out on our shop floor here in Faith and you see a fleet of spaceships.